No species will ever forget the moment humanity's patience finally snapped. This opening sets the tone and style, and I'll continue in this vein unless you'd like a specific direction, more political, tragic, action-heavy, satirical, etc. Let's dive in. They mistook our silence for submission. The Council of the 10,000 Worlds, the great interstellar alliance that spanned from the golden suns of Gish to the ice rings of Awaken, logged us as primitive, reactive, emotionally volatile, but ultimately not threatening. We were the species that talked too much and threatened too little. Our representatives sat in the galleries of diplomacy, smiling with clenched teeth, translating every insult into polite rebuttals. The other species learned, over time, that humanity had no interest in asserting itself. Not really. Not in the way that mattered. And so they pushed. They pushed when they annexed Jupiter's moons under the guise of resource stewardship. They pushed when Earth's atmosphere was used as a dumping ground for exotic chemical byproducts, invisible but corrosive. They pushed when human colonies on Gliese Prime were erased in silence, blamed on local rebellions that were never verified. We filed formal protests. We staged walkouts. We appealed to higher tribunals in a hierarchy that stretched into the absurd. What we didn't do, what we refused to do, was retaliate. And so the myth grew, that humanity was a relic of its own moral leash, more interested in playing fair than surviving. But myths are dangerous things. Especially when they're built on a misreading of history. What the galaxy never understood, and what it never bothered to learn, was that humanity's restraint was never weakness. It was a calculation. A deep, generational patience bred from thousands of years of fighting with itself. Earth had burned itself 1,000 times before it learned how not to strike first. We had perfected the art of waiting, of documenting, of enduring. What they saw as docility was actually record-keeping. Every slight was archived. Every act of aggression was catalogued. We let the ledger grow, and grow, and grow. Not because we were afraid. Because we were watching. And then, finally, came the day that changed everything. It wasn't dramatic. Not at first. A small outpost orbiting the red dwarf star Calories 6, where human scientists were studying gravity lancing, was destroyed. 300 lives. Gone in the blink of a touch and burst. The Vashtari Confederacy claimed it was an accidental and errant weapons test. They offered reparations. Hollow words. Shallow condolences. But for humanity, it wasn't about that outpost. It was about the sum total. The weight of centuries dropped all at once onto that one moment. And something ancient stirred in us. We didn't make a statement. We didn't call for sanctions. We didn't appeal to the council. We disappeared. For 72 hours, every human envoy, diplomat, translator, and trade liaison across the galaxy went silent. Embassies shut down. Com links dark. Not a word. Not a whisper. And then came the transmission, a short, clear, and broadcast across every known frequency. We are done speaking. No one expected what followed. No one could have. Because the galaxy had never seen war the way humans make war. Not truly. They had seen tactical disputes. Border skirmishes. Economic sanctions enforced by automated fleets. But they had never seen what a cornered human civilization looks like when it stops pretending to be civilized. Our first strike wasn't against the Vashtari. It was against the records. Human hackers centuries ahead in stealth tech breached the Central Interstellar Archives and rewrote the history of the war before it had even begun. Every major system was flooded with false records, tactical weaknesses that didn't exist, artificial conflicts between long-standing allies, encrypted communications seeded with mistrust. Entire fleets moved based on disinformation we planted. Alliances crumbled before the first shot was fired. The galaxy tore itself into confusion, chasing shadows we had painted. Then the real attacks began. Not planets. Not civilians. Humanity had no interest in repeating the mistakes of others. We struck infrastructure. Communication hubs. Shipyards. Warp beacons. Our stealth cruisers emerged from dark space, hit with precision, and vanished before alarms even triggered. It was like being hunted by ghosts. Worlds went blind. Supply lines choked. The Council's great fleets, designed for posturing and defense, were rendered inert, crippled by their reliance on predictability. And yet, through it all, we offered no demands. No ultimatums. We simply erased. Every military decision the galaxy had made over the past 50 years had been modeled on the assumption that humans would never do this. That we were the ones who'd always choose restraint. That belief that Leia had shaped borders, dictated treaties, emboldened enemies. And now it was shattered. On day 30, the Vashtari homeworld experienced a system-wide blackout. Every satellite that orbited. Every space dock imploded. Their High Chancellor tried to flee in a diplomatic cruiser. We let him go. Let him gather the other species. Let him tell them what he had seen. But no species ever forgets the moment they realize they were wrong about the humans. The Council convened an emergency summit on Terraxis, a neutral moon that prided itself on its impenetrable defense grid. The summit lasted 4 minutes. That's how long it took for every representative to realize their security systems had been compromised. Every word they spoke, every plan they whispered, every plea they made was already being streamed to the remnants of their own populations. We weren't just defeating their militaries. We were unraveling their credibility. And still, we said nothing. Because there was nothing left to say. What none of them could grasp and what made their horror complete was that we weren't fighting for anything. Not for conquest. Not for revenge. We didn't want their worlds or their resources. We didn't want apologies. We had moved beyond the idea of resolution. What we wanted was for the ledger to be balanced. And when it was, we would stop. That realization came too late. Entire star clusters went silent. The species that had mocked us tried to run. They fled to the edges of known space, seeking shelter and forgotten moons and deep asteroid belts. But the humans didn't follow. Not anymore. The war wasn't about chasing them. It was about clarity. It was about showing, beyond all doubt, that our silence had never been consent. Eventually, the attacks slowed. Our fleets returned. Our diplomats emerged, no longer smiling. And the galaxy stared at us with new eyes. Terrified eyes. Respectful eyes. The kind of gaze reserved not for enemies but for forces of nature. And it was in that silence, after the noise, after the fire, after the data clouds finally cleared, that the new rule was written. Not by us. By them. Quietly. Unanimously. A whisper passed from world to world, carved into memory. Never push their humans. Never test their patience. Never mistake their restraint for weakness. Because once it's gone, there is no going back.